All right, everybody. Let's get at her, shall we? It's me and you now, Andrew. It's me and you, buddy. Are you ready?
Okay. As long as we don't actually fight for real.
Of course not. We're not actually gonna fight for real. That wouldn't be very nice. So for folks who are here for the burning of the wheels, what Andrew and I wanted to do today is try out because I mean, when was the last time? I think the last time that I did the fight thing was the last time we played it because we did a fight in that campaign, right?
Yeah, I got stabbed.
You did get man.
Um,
Time's a
and
flat circle.
and Jenna's character had to like save my butt,
Yeah,
if I
yeah. There's a
recall
lot of
correctly.
bleeding out and stabbing. So yeah, so the fight rules are one of those things that are both, I think, a highlight for Burning Wheel. Like one of those things where we're like, yeah, Burning Wheel has this really awesome like dueling system, but then also can be a little intimidating, both for people who are new to the system who look at it and are like, why are there 16 things for me to choose from?
Yeah, every time I fight, I have to do that.
What is this sorcery? And then also, if you haven't done it in a while, it can take a little bit to ramp up to it. So, um, yeah, I think that we wanted to just kind of polish up because we talked about at the beginning of Burning Wheel, kind of slowly instituting new systems, and we've got Duel of Wits in there, but there's been a lot more violence of late, um, which might be putting it
There sure
mildly.
has.
So we wanted to, yes, everybody get your bets in with John Booker because we're gonna try out the fight system again. So to assist us in doing so, let me jump over to my Chrome window here, get that set up, and we will take a look at some of the stuff that we've added in Roll20 to make that happen. Because, as with a lot of stuff in Burning Wheel, being able to automate that process is a lot easier. So, Andrew, do you see the card deck in the corner? Do you have
Yeah,
that available to you?
I see
Okay,
the fight deck.
perfect. Okay, so
There are so many cards in it. Oh
yes,
my God.
so the fight deck is there, and just like the Duel of
Sink,
Wits,
howl, or pray.
yeah, so just like Duel of Wits, we have a deck of cards that we're going to choose from. But as you can see, fight available cards, there are many. Um, thanks, big thanks, just like the Duel of Wits, to Golden WH, a fan of Burning Wheel and user of Roll20 for creating these for us.
Oh,
Uh,
it's that guy that does it.
yeah,
I
these
love
these are
that
going to be
guy.
so useful because we do also have a sheet that normally if you're playing person to person you would like write your actions on the sheet, but this is a lot better for a shared space. Once I started playing mouse guard, I realized I would never be able to go back to the not having cards for this stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So just like Duel of Wits, it's a question of picking actions and comparing them. Only there's a few more things that we're going to be doing. Comparative weapon lengths, for example, jockeying for position. So in a Duel of Wits, it doesn't matter if you have the loudest voice; you don't get an advantage. But part of a fight, when you're circling your opponent, is trying to get into optimal stabbing or slashing range for your weapon. So if I've got a longsword and my opponent has a knife, I want to keep them, a good like meter and a half, 2 meters away from me so I can poke them with the sharp part of my sword. But they want to knock my sword out of the way and get all up close so that the best I could do would be punch them with the hilt because my sword is
And
too
they're
long.
just like stab,
Just
stab,
give you a
stab.
hug and stab you to death.
Yeah.
So that's a part of it. And at the beginning of every exchange, we reposition. So we're kind of like jockeying back and forth for position. And then as well, you don't just get 3 actions per volley. You get a number of actions equal to your character's reflexes. So this is why elven duelists are totally hacks because often, an elf or another character with a high reflex will be able to take 4 or 5 actions in a fight, whereas a sort of average character will be taking 3 or even 2. And as you get wounded, you slow down and you're taking less actions as you go.
I get two
You got 2,
actions.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the way to compensate for that is that we have characters with armor, and armor is a special pool of dice that we get to roll when we get hit to negate wounds. And reading the book, almost every time I've ever had a conversation with someone who's never played the fight rules but read the book, they're like, "Whoa, armor's overpowered." That's nuts. I get to roll 4 dice, and if any of them are successes, I just ignore the wound, and it's like, yep, that's what armor does. But armor degrades. So if you roll a 1 on your armor, that you can lose dice. So you're cutting away your opponent's armor. Also, if you're fighting someone in plate mail, you don't use a sword. Use like a military fork or like something that can punch a hole in it, or a mace. You just
Or a
smush them.
mace, yeah.
Just smush them inside their armor.
And they're slower, so you just stay at distance, and they never get to attack you. So it doesn't
Exactly.
matter.
Their agility drops, and yeah. So one way that the system, I've seen the game sort of slow down and get a little bogged down, is 2 people in full plate armor fighting each other with non-armor piercing weapons. So it's just a lot of like hitting a brick wall. But thankfully today
I got you.
I don't think that'll be a problem. Yeah. Yeah. Smooshing is a solid tactic. So I've put together some. This is going to be a non-canon. This is the dream sequence episode. So like Rooster, has a rough day, goes home, puts his little head down on the pillow, and dreams, as you do, of bloody combat. So yeah, so we're gonna just duel some NPCs that I've put together specifically for this fight. You have the exciting opportunity to fight Sir Not So Good with a Sword, or Lady Slightly More Formidable. And then I was thinking we could face you off against someone who I designed to like actually fight, and who's a pretty decent match for you. We'll see how it goes. I'm curious to see where this I want to see who wins, Rooster or Princess. But we'll start you off with.
Well, that depends, Adam. Has she been wounded already? Because if so, I've got her number, and I'll make her be friends with me.
So what's actually kind of cool is so Luke suggests in the game that you actually don't just start a fight by saying we are fighting now. You lead into a fight, and we won't actually do this because there's no narrative space. We have no fiction to guide us into the fight. But in the fight chapter, it says start a fight with a roll with something else, right? Engage your opponent with an ambush or with a sword attack, or because there's always like a deciding factor. Unless you're having like a formal duel, there's usually like, I jump out from the alley and smash him over the head with my mace, or I run him down with my horse.
Or I insult him.
Exactly, that's right.
Yeah, I provoke someone.
Yeah, and these have real mechanical effects. Like if you ambush someone, you might get to start them off wounded, right? You might, slash them across the arm before the actual fight starts, you big cheater. Or if you insult them, you might be able to make an intimidate roll to have them hesitate, and then you get the first
test.
Yeah. So hesitation is actually really powerful in fights. It happens when a character gets wounded, or if you make a successful intimidate action. The intimidate action allows you to force a steel test, and if they fail or they have hesitation, each point of hesitation that remains, they just stand there or flee, and you get to wail away at them.
Wail.
Yeah. So basically, you can figure out in your fight if you and this is where the scripting comes in, where you kind of have to play your character. So we have the fictional circumstances of the characters, and if you're fighting someone who's obviously like afraid of you and doesn't want to fight, you might wait until you think they're going to script and avoid or something, so they back away, and you just shout at them to intimidate them, and then they'll lose the rest of their actions, and then that's when you set and great strike.
And then, like you said, when people get injured, they hesitate more. So if you like stun someone and then hit them, it can just like spiral out of control.
Yes, yeah. Fights tends to be like a lot of bashing away at each other really fast, and then someone gets hit, and then that person gets hit again and again and again, and then they're dead.
Yeah, like it ends very abruptly, which I think is quite.
One fight that I found, and I think this is one of the earlier fights that I played in this game, was it was 2 like semi-armored kind of knight characters. It was a noblewoman and her cousin, and she had the player, my friend Brownman, who was playing her, had intended just to wound this guy, like not too bad, but just to like smack him around a little and prove a point. But because of the way scripting worked, the guy wasn't ready for the hit, and she hit him full on and dealt him a traumatic wound, and it was this whole thing. It ended up being like a big part of the rest of the campaign, that she had like, basically killed this guy. He was in a coma for like 18 months or something. So part of why fight is written the way that it is because combat has effects. It has real outcomes in the game, and this is why it's often suggested that you only fight if it's 2 players fighting each other, or if you are fighting for something you believe in, if you're fighting for a belief. So Yeah. Cool. Okay. So let's do it. Do you want to take on Sir Not So Good with a sword?
Yeah, let's warm up.
Okay.
Also, my belief today is that I will win fights. Or no, just that I will get in
I
fights.
will get in. Yeah,
Let's be
exactly.
strategic.
So for Sir Not So Good with a Sword, for those of you following along at home, I've given this character pretty average stats. He's got a 2 in just about everything, slightly higher health, and an average steel. He's got worse sword skill and almost nothing to fork into it. Forking is still a big part of the way that you make rolls. All the individual rolls are the same as they are in Burning Wheel. So having extra things to fork, super good. Duel wise, one-on-one combat wise, really anything to do with like the weapon you're wielding or the kind of person you're fighting. Those can all help you build a bigger pool of attacks. And then for combat, you can see I've given him a crappy sword and some equally crappy leather armor. So I figure circumstantially, this would be a case of, say, the rooster having a dream about a battle, right? Like cleaning up after a successful skirmish with your unit. And you've maybe chased this enemy swordsman. Let's say you chase him into a mill. So there's this mill, the stone mill, out by a river. There's the sound of the water wheel turning, and the grindstone, grinding up grain, and yeah, you've chased this opponent into the milling chamber, and he turns around, nowhere left to go, and draws his sword. So what weapons? Because Rooster, you got an ass ton of.
I've got an armory.
You have
Yeah.
a veritable armory. What's do you want to should we try like
I think spear for
equal
me.
weapons, or do you want to have a spear? You want to use that one this
Yeah.
time? Okay. All right. So we'll take it nice and slow for this one. We'll just go through each rule as we go, and then we'll do another fight that we can do a little more quickly. So there's a procedure with these rules. There's steps that we go through. So we'll assume that the fight has started. And the first thing to do is determine the initial positioning of the fight. So you're engaging. Now you've got a spear. What's the length on your spear?
It's like the one-handed like spear and shield kind of spear. And its length is longer.
Okay, so you've got a
It's a
longer
short spear.
weapon. So that's pretty long still. It's longer than a short sword, longer than a long sword, even longer than
Yeah.
an axe. So it's like a quarterstaff with a pointy end. Now he's got a sword. So with his sword, he's at long. So what you're going to need to do to position is their positioning does actually matter. If you have the same weapons, positioning is irrelevant. You don't jockey for position because you're both in optimal striking distance for each other.
Yeah.
So that's not the case. So we're going to test speed to begin, to figure out our position. And for that to happen, there's some advantage to it. So if you have a longer stride than your opponent, you gain an advantage. Now your stride is reduced, right? Because you
Yeah,
have
because I'm lame.
your one gimp leg. Okay. So Rooster,
How do I calculate my stride though?
yeah. So stride, when we were
I
talking
don't
about
have
this,
it's not on my character sheet.
yeah, we were talking about this way back at the beginning.
Oh, my stride is 6. I
Yes.
wrote it down in my character sheet.
Stride is just based on what your character's
Stock.
your
plus
stock, yeah. So, for example, men, orcs, trolls, and great spiders have stride of 7. Dwarves have stride of 6. Elves and rodent have a stride of 8. And wolves have a stride of 11. And if you're on a horse, you have a stride of 12. So your opponent, he's got a stride of 7. And yours is reduced by 1 or 2?
Mine was reduced by 1, so it's 6.
Okay. So he's got a 1-point advantage. So he's going to roll his